You might have seen some of this weekend. President Donald Trump heaping praise on leaders of the civil rights movement during the dedication ceremony of a new museum in their honor in Mississippi. Some African-American leaders, though, stayed away from the event, citing the president's poor record on civil rights issues. Joining me right now, Dr. Joyce Ladner. She's former president of Howard University, also a noted civil rights activist. She was with SNCC, the famed Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, John Lewis, Julian Bond, Marion Barry, just a few of the names that you'll know connected to SNCC. But Dr. Joyce Ladner is also from Mississippi, and this past weekend you were down there for the dedication of the new Civil Rights Museum, right?
I was indeed.
But you didn't run into the president. How come?
Oh, I boycotted it. He spoke to a predominantly white group of Republicans in the auditorium of the museum. See, originally, the actual dedication of the museum was on the grounds of the museum. Mm-hmm. And he was going to be on the stage with Merle Evers and all the past governors and so on, and the current governor. There was so much controversy over it, so much outrage, that they changed the venue. He didn't have enough guts to stay away, as he should have. Mm-hmm. But they put him inside. Right. But I didn't even go to the grounds. I went back to the museum. I'd gone the night before, but I went to the museum after he left.
And why should the president have stayed away?
Why? I mean, it was an outrage. A friend of mine, a reporter, asked me, Joyce, if you were to see the president to ask him a question, what would you ask? I said, why are you here? You have no business being here. There were two wives of civil rights martyrs, Ellie Damer, whose husband, Vernon Damer, and Merle Evers, Medgar Evers, his wife. They were there. I mean, why would you go around and he doesn't stand up for civil rights. He's never done so. Mm-hmm. And if he was going to go down there, at least he should have taken some money with him or something, you know. Right. But it was an outrage.
Somebody said, and I think one of the conservatives said, might not that have been a chance to have a conversation with the president? I mean, if we don't start talking at some point, hey, how would you respond to that? What kind of conversation after Why Are You Here would you have had with the president?
Well, my reporter friend, Jerry Mitchell, asked me, who opened a lot of the cold cases and got people prosecuted. Mm-hmm. Well, he asked me, if you were to guide him through the museum, what would you want him to see? I said, I could not be his docent, you know, because I would be too angry if I tell him about what happened with Mrs. Hamer. Should I show him the charred remains of Vernon Damer's truck that was bombed? Or no, I mean, there was. He would have to do some work before I would have. He would have to demonstrate some caring and concern before I would want to talk
got
to
you.
him.
Joyce, let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. You grew up during these times, and I grew up in part in Kentucky and Ohio. We were just afraid of Mississippi and Alabama and those places. You told me, because we were communicating on Facebook, we're Facebook friends, you're saying I was right to be afraid.
You should have been afraid. It was terrible. It was awful. It was state-run apartheid.
And your lives were in danger.
All the time.
There was no due process
no.
for African Americans.
I tried to attempt to register to vote 3 times. You had to pass a literacy test. Each time I was a senior in college. Right. And I never passed the literacy test.
And you actually knew people who were killed by Klansmen and others.
I knew Vernon Damer, who had been my mentor. He was murdered. His home was firebombed and shot into. Right. He got his family out. I knew Medgar Evers both of these men since I was a young teenager. Right. You know, I knew Mrs. Hamer, Fannie Lou Hamer.
Are things better? Everything's relative. Are things better in Mississippi for blacks, for African Americans?
Well, not for the poor. In fact, they're worse in some ways. Right. But for the middle class, there are a lot of educated people. There's a large companies have gone in
And my final question, are people like you returning to Mississippi? Are you going back home?
No, I'm too old to go back. I'm joking, but I go back a lot. A lot of people have gone back.
Okay.
A lot of retirees have gone back.
Joyce Ladner, thanks a lot.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Back in a minute.